Lead story. The Prime Minister has said he's ready and willing to deploy British troops to Ukraine as part of peacekeeping forces. The Shadow National Security Minister, Alicia Kearns, joins me now to discuss this. Thanks so much for joining us on this topic. Do you support the government in this regard?
Well, I'm quite cautious because we're not at a place in which we understand the terms or the conditions or the numbers or the way in which we've been deploying our people. And we should always make sure that we are making decisions based on as much information as possible. The reality is that Ukraine is still fighting for its freedom. Russia has taken around 600 square miles of territory over the last few months. We're not in a place as yet where I think we can be making those commitments. But in terms of standing shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine, we've demonstrated we will do that time and time again, and we will give them what we need. But I just think we're not in that place as yet. Things are going to change over the next few hours, let alone the next few days, weeks and months.
But I mean, if you read the Prime Minister's op-ed, he's not professing that all of the terms are agreed, and he is hypothetically pledging his support for boots on the ground on behalf of the UK as part of a peacekeeping force. Is that something the Conservatives wouldn't do?
And look, we've, as I've said, given more support to Ukraine than any other country. But I'm used to seeing what it's like out where we have people deployed. I don't like to deal in hypotheticals when it comes to putting our men and women on the ground fighting for people, because I've seen how dangerous it can be on the ground and how important those decisions are. So what I'm saying is, yes, we will always give Ukraine the support they need. We will stand shoulder to shoulder with them. We will fight for them to determine the terms of this peace. And also, it's important to note, this can't just be, well, we've managed to stop the shooting and murder, and therefore we've got peace. We need a peace deal that will end the threat to our European neighbours and to us, one that will make us safer from the state that is currently behaving like a terrorist. That's what we need to know. So I'm saying we need to be cautious, we need to know exactly what the terms are, and at this place, it is too early to say we will absolutely deploy peacekeepers, because for all we know, a deal could be done that says that Ukraine loses more territory, and we could be defending territory that essentially enables Russia's narrative that they had every right to launch this appalling renewed illegal invasion. We have to make sure we know the terms we're signing up to.
To be clear, that is essentially what the Prime Minister's op-ed said. He's not saying absolutely he will deploy boots on the ground. It's a hypothetical offering.
That is the announcement
you mentioned,
today.
Sorry?
But that is what he's wanted to lead the country with today, saying that he will provide peacekeepers if necessary. We will do what is necessary, but I think there is timing. It's a bit like the discussion about Saudi Arabia. We hope this is a sequencing. First a meeting with the Russians, separately then a meeting with the Ukrainians, then we move forward. But there are points at which you make timings for these sorts of announcements, and his priority should be today talking about defence spending, so that if he is planning to move to peacekeepers, we have been able to invest in land, because currently the focus has been on air and sea, because that's what keeps our country safe, that he puts in place a defence spending now that should have been happening since July.
I mean, you're trying to criticise the state of defence spending 6 months into their government when this is a long-term issue after 14 years in power.
I've always been very clear I was critical of my own government, but the reality is that 2.3% of defence is what we've been spending. That is a good amount, and we've been investing in the right equipment. We made sure that we were able to give Ukraine what it needed, when it needed, whether it was Challenger 2 tanks or long-range missiles. But what I'm saying is since July, a decision was made to side with the Treasury to not give the increase in defence spending we needed to continue to replenish stocks. Replenishing stocks should be the priority so that we are ready if we do need to provide peacekeeping services, if we do need to provide more support to Ukraine. So look, I will continue to stand with Ukraine, but I will also speak out, as I have done since the moment I was elected, to make sure that we defend our security.
Let's touch on this gathering in Riyadh. In fact, Marco Rubio's plane has just touched down. We might see him stepping off it whilst we're talking. Are you critical of the US for proceeding as they are?
I'm very cautious about anything that doesn't see Ukraine determine what peace looks like and doesn't make clear that Ukraine must be victorious in its situation. They were the ones that were illegally invaded again. However, I also understand from diplomacy, having been involved in things like the Syria peace talks, that there is a chronology and there is a sequencing. I would be very cautious about trusting anything Putin says. We have a history over the last 20 years, in fact, if not longer, of trusting what Putin says and underestimating the Ukrainians. We cannot repeat that pattern again. So there is a point in diplomacy diplomacy where you sit down with the two sides separately and then you move forward from there. But as I would say, they should be very, very cautious when it comes to Putin and make sure they don't repeat the lessons of the past.
Just whilst we've still got you, we're waiting Marco Rubio to step off his plane any moment now. Is he someone, as when you were chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, or in your current role or past role, have you dealt with him in the past? Do you think he's good news for the United Kingdom, or have you been concerned by some of his rhetoric since assuming the role as Secretary of State?
Rubio has always been very strong when it came to dictatorships and countries who behave like terrorists, whether it was Iran or whether it was Russia. So his past record stands him in a really good place to be firm in terms of making sure that we get, as I said, not just an end of the murder of innocent Ukrainians, but actually a peace deal that protects European security, that ends the threat to our neighbours and to our continent. But we have to make sure that Ukraine is front and centre of this. In the UK, particularly Conservatives, we are not going to shy away, as the government won't, from saying that Ukraine has to be front and centre. The UK has led before. We have to continue to do that now.